Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's District Administration Web Seminar, which is entitled Classroom Air Quality Monitoring, Why It Matters, which is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsors here today, Honeywell and School Specialty. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to share just a few housekeeping items with you. If you need any technical support, then please use the chat panel, which you can find on the right side of your screen. Then select on my name, which is Stephen Blackburn, and then type your message if you're having any technical issues. If you don't have any computer speakers, or if you prefer maybe to listen privately, then please dial the phone number and access code that I am posting in the chat right now. So if you're having any problems, just look for that. We will also be welcoming any questions you have today with a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. You can submit a question by using the Q&A panel, which you can find. It's on the bottom right side of your screen. Then just make sure to send everything to all panelists. If you don't see the chat or the Q&A panels at the moment, just look again to the right side of your screen and then click on the expand triangle, and that is located directly in front of the panel name. That'll make sure you have access to it. Also, something important to note, if you would like to access the web seminar at a later time, you'll be pleased to know that everyone who is registered and who is attending today, all of you will receive an email with a link to the slides, as well as the archive recording. And one last thing, and then we're getting started. All attendees, also from a school or district who are here today, will be entered to win a school trial from our sponsor, Honeywell, and the drawing will occur at the end of the webinar. There'll be more info on that, so stay tuned. And with that, I'd just like to start off a few things with a poll that I am launching right now. So if you can, please participate. Over the next 30 seconds, please just let us know, where you're located to help our panelists get a feel of where everyone is, and it will just help with the overall presentation. So over the next, it's currently 18 seconds. Please fill that out for us. We appreciate it. And then we'll get started. And everything is coming in. That's awesome. A few more seconds. Also see a few answers coming in the chat. Okay. Perfect. Now it is my pleasure to hand things off to our monitor here today, Mac Crumlin, who is the Vice President over at School Specialty. Hi, Mac. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. And for our audience, I want to say thank you for your time today. To the Midwest, looks like you went. So I hope it's decent weather, but we appreciate your time today. We're honored that we were able to pull together with our partner Honeywell some experienced individuals that have a message that we hope you all would care to hear. In a prior life, I was a member of the United States Armed Forces, and when we used to give briefings, there was a technique that we used to keep us rather focused and on time and try and be effective in our communications, and that was tell the audience what you're going to say, then say it, and then tell them what you said. So I'm going to try and use that technique this afternoon, this morning, in communicating with all of you. We want you to be aware. This is a 45-minute webinar with a Q&A period afterwards. We can't make you experts, but we want you to be aware of this issue of and the importance of monitoring the air inside a school facility. And we're going to try and give you some reasons why, some evidence why it's impactful, not only for just health and safety reasons, but how actually that can translate to the improved performance of our teachers, our students, our staff, administrators, those that spend a great deal of their life in the classroom. At the end of this, we're going to actually take a little bit of a narrow dive into a case study looking at just 2 states that have already done something in law and passed legislation that compels monitoring of the air in schools in certain circumstances, and then reinforce that in those states as well as nationally, there are resources that equip you to go forward if you make the decision to investigate this further and then want to seek solutions, there are resources for you that can help you execute upon what you're going to hear today about indoor air quality, about CO2 monitoring, and about student performance. So step one, try to tell you what we're going to say today. What I'd like to do first is now jump right into one of those individuals that's going to help us tell the story. I am really happy and proud and glad and all those things to introduce her. I've seen her work over the past 2 years from her agency. I'm a fan, but we thought it would be impactful and important that you hear from the department. And so I want to introduce Tracy Washington Enger. She's the program manager for the EPA Indoor Air Quality Division. And with that, Tracy, give our audience just some of the background about what the EPA is doing, why, with regard to indoor air quality at schools, why it's important, and then if you could come down just another level, help our audience see what you see, what the agency sees about the importance of CO2 monitoring.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Mac. Thank you so much for having me on. And it's a pleasure to be here. As Mac said, I'm Tracy Washington Enger, and I'm with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And so I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. What I am not here to do is, as a government official, is I am not here to endorse any particular product or service or vendor or contractor. What I am here to do is to support and endorse a set of practices, principles, and policies that we have found to be effective in the management of indoor air quality and creating the healthiest indoor learning environments that we can for our nation's kids. And so when we talk about healthy indoor environments, the way that we look at it at EPA is it really healthy school indoor environments is perched upon a three-legged stool. And those three legs, the first of which is really managing the school facility to make sure that you have the best, most highly performing facility that you possibly can. So managing your indoor air quality to reduce mold and moisture, to balance your energy concerns, but really most importantly, to make sure that you have systems, HVAC systems and ventilation systems in place that are going to eliminate pollutants and biological contaminants like viruses. Which brings us to the second leg of the stool, which is protecting human health and protecting the health of your students and staff in those schools. So the pandemic has certainly positioned schools squarely at the center of public health in this country. But we have recognized for decades the importance of indoor air quality when it comes to creating a healthy environment in schools and the impacts of indoor air quality on health. So in addition to what we're doing right now in managing for virus control and responding to COVID, we've also always wanted to have indoor air quality program in place that addresses things like asthma and other respiratory diseases. Asthma accounts for billions with a B, billions of missed school days every year. And of course, that has a dramatic impact on student attendance, which has an impact on student learning, as well as the bottom line for school districts. It has financial costs associated with it as well. But certainly when it comes to having students in the classroom so that they can learn, that learning lost, you do not get to recoup. So you really want to avoid absenteeism as much as possible. But there's also the element of presenteeism. Students who are in the classroom, teachers who are in the classroom who are not able to perform at their best because of indoor air quality issues. We know, we're here to talk about CO2 monitoring. We know that things like CO2 have an impact on student and staff ability to concentrate, on their ability, on their attention, and it reflects itself in what we see in test scores. So you improve the quality of air, you provide people more fresh, good quality air, and guess what? Their brains work better, and then they perform better. So when we look at CO2, we know that there is no single standard for measuring good indoor air quality. Would that there were, but there's not. But as one of my favorite indoor air quality champions likes to say, dilution is the solution to pollution. So being able to have a really good idea of how well our ventilation systems are working is key. And the thing is that CO2 monitoring, what it offers is a reliable, affordable, understandable proxy measure for indoor air quality and for ventilation, and how good the ventilation is, how good the dilution is in your school setting. So that's why it becomes really important. And during the pandemic, we've had schools really focusing on three primary things when it comes to putting in place a comprehensive indoor air quality program that is going to address the needs of responding to COVID-19 right now. So those three things are increasing your outdoor ventilation, enhancing your filtration, and after you've done those things, considering whether or not you need supplemental air purification or air cleaning. And what CO2 monitoring helps you do is evaluate how successfully you have put those measures in place to ensure that you're doing the right things, that they're having the impact that you want them to have, and that you're ensuring the healthiest indoor environments. So, as I wind up here, I just want to say that what the pandemic has done is provide us a moment where so much attention is being focused on indoor air quality, followed by resources to be able to address it, and some of the best information about the best practices and policies and procedures to put in place. We have a moment, and that moment with this attention is turning into a movement. We see so much more activity, but we have the opportunity right now, a once in a generation opportunity, to take this moment that is becoming a movement and turn it into a monument of health and protection for our students and staff across the nation. And so I implore you to do that right now, to turn it into that monument that our students and our staff deserve so much in this country. So with that, Mac, I'll turn it back over to you.
Tracy, thank you. That was awesome. I took like 3 notes. I hope everybody took that. Dilution to solution for the pollution. Let's take this moment and move it into a movement. In that regard, I think it's important that for the audience, while SARS-CoV-2 and the COVID pandemic is the impetus that's got us relooking at these issues related to indoor air quality, this isn't going to stop just because of the virus. This is a movement, as Tracy said, that really impacts learning going forward forever. So I hope that made an impact on you, her remarks, just as it did for me. Tracy, if people wanted to know more information from the EPA, where do they go?
My goodness, we have a plethora of information on our website. And so I would encourage you, and you will see that website again at the end in the resources, but join us at, epa.gov/IAQ-schools. And we have a webinar at this time next week, February 10th. From 1 to 2:30, we have a webinar. So please go to our website. You can sign up for it there, and we will be talking more about COVID response and putting in place comprehensive, long-lasting measures in your schools and school districts. Thanks for the opportunity for the plug, Mac.
No worries. Awesome. Thank you again. So what I'd like to do now is transition and bring it maybe a little bit closer to home. Obviously, we've reached out to schools and school districts across the country. My guess is a lot of you deal with facilities, operations, maintenance operations, the custodial function. My mom used to work in a school district where it was still called buildings and grounds. So maybe that term of art is still used in schools today. I want to allow us to have a case study and let you hear from somebody that walks that walk, talks that talk, and has to live it in your shoes every day. And he's been doing it for a number of years. So I'm really pleased and proud that we get to introduce Roger Silveria. Roger is the Director of Facilities, Operations, and Maintenance for Northern California's largest all high school district. It's Eastside Union High School District outside of San Jose, or actually in San Jose. And we asked Roger to join us today. Roger, I know you, and I know how passionate you are about this issue. Can you maybe give, for context, give our audience just a little bit of that background of how you got where you are with your thinking on indoor air quality and CO2 monitoring. And then, because school leaders always have a context, give them a sense of what your hypothesis was when you went after this. How are you able to sell it and speak to and communicate it to your school cabinet, to your board? And then, what were those findings that material impactful? Let them hear what you see, what you've been able to measure at Eastside Union.
Thanks, Mac, for the introduction. Thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be here. Again, my name is Roger Silvera. I'm the Director of Maintenance, Facilities, and Operations for Eastside Union High School District. I started with Eastside back in 2017, and one of my first tasks at Eastside was to triage a building, a cluster of classrooms that had an odor problem, and several teachers complaining about symptoms, headaches, fatigue, nausea from being inside those classrooms. And what I found was the ventilation system had been disabled, and that building had no ventilation. And so some of the teachers were suffering from those symptoms. And then shortly after, I found another cluster of classrooms with similar issues where the ventilation system had failed and there was no fresh air in those classrooms. And then right after that, I ran into an article from Lawrence Labs on CO2 levels in classrooms and how that impacts student attendance. And in the article, it mentioned that your attendance can be impacted by as much as 3.4% based on CO2 levels. And looking at our ADA numbers and how we're funded, a 1% improvement in ADA for Eastside meant about $2.5 million in additional funding. So that kind of got my attention, that there's not just student achievement, but also financial implications to poor air quality in classrooms. And then that kind of led me down to a rabbit hole of researching articles online for a couple of years. I've read probably thousands of pages of different white papers and articles on ventilation and CO2. That prompted me to start my own website called We Need Fresh Air, to kind of get the word out of the importance of ventilation and monitoring CO2. So in 2019, we started at Eastside looking at installing CO2 monitors, and we're actually featured on NBC News for being one of the first to start installing the CO2 monitors back in 2019. Right after that, COVID kind of hit, and it kind of put the brakes on some of the work I was doing as far as being able to measure student achievement based on the newly installed monitors. But we did notice soon, even though school was closed, we had COVID testing at several of our facilities. And in some of the facilities, we had as many as 1,000 people a day coming through some of our buildings for COVID testing. And in all those spaces, I had tested the ventilation. We had installed MERV 13 filters and CO2 monitoring. And we had a few 100,000 people come through over the months in our buildings, and we didn't have a single case traced back to the testing center. So it speaks to the value of being able to monitor ventilation and ensure that those spaces were adequately ventilated and keeping people safe. And the monitoring really helped us make sure that ventilation was there. We kind of moved past that a little bit. We got to school opening up, and school opened up in August, and we have a COVID dashboard, and I monitored that dashboard often. And throughout from August to about December, our COVID testing rate, positive rate, as reported back to the district, was about 0.5%. Even though we're in the midst of Omicron, that rate right now is still about 1.5%, so it's still fairly low. And I kind of equate some of that success to the filtration, monitoring, and ventilation efforts that we put in, along with other measures as masking and vaccines. But a big part of what I contribute to the success was as a building manager, was keeping that ventilation and filtration going and the monitoring. And early on, when we decided to go down this route of air quality monitoring, in one of the board studies that I was attending, there was a discussion on student disciplinary rates. And when we noticed, based on the graphs, that the bell curve, that it was creating that misbehavior peaked right around noon. And it was kind of odd to look at these bell curves, that in almost every month after month, the misbehavior peaked right around noon, and it tapered off towards the end of the day. And when I looked at the data coming from our CO2 monitors that we had installed, most of our air quality issues all peaked around noon and tapered off in the afternoon. And if you layer them over one another, it was kind of a coincidence that the two were very similar. And I think, looking at the science, it doesn't surprise me that poor air quality creates other issues along with behavior, test scores, and well-being. It didn't surprise me looking at the data. And so we're now at about 2,000 monitors across the entire district. And I'm looking forward to the day where we can look back at historical data when school's back in fully operational and see how test scores have improved, how attendance has improved. It's kind of skewed our data with COVID, but it's also highlighted the importance of having those monitors in place and keeping our students safe.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Appreciate that greatly. For our audience, again, your blog site, if they wanted to research a little bit more on some of the activities and programs and outcomes you've done from Eastside Union, where would they go again?
Yeah, so they can go to weneedfreshair.com. And I have a blog there that will kind of tell a few stories of some of the things that I've done. And a lot of the research and white papers and different articles are all posted on the website. So if anyone wants to learn more about CO2 and monitoring, they go to the website and it's all there.
Super. Thank you, sir. On this subject about science and the relationship to student outcomes, one of our guest speakers is not able to make it today. Medical issue arose, and so I'm going to actually speak for that individual, but we still wanted to connote and give you the information. Again, in our webinar packet at the end, we've put in some slides that actually allow you to go research this information if you've not seen it yourself. But I first want to give credit where it belongs, obviously. Dr. Joseph Allen is with the Harvard T.H. Chan's School of Public Health, and also leads a program with that institution called the Healthy Buildings Program. If you've not seen it, I would encourage you to check it out. One of the things I've seen Dr. Allen speak numerous times now. One of the things that I took away from his research, and those that he's quoted in the academic and scientific community, for those that are in the school space, if I met you one-on-one and I came to you and I said, I think I have a way that could help your students see an 11% increase in math scores, would you be interested? I hope that would get your attention. I think your reaction with me would be one of doubt and or what are you trying to position? Is that the latest and greatest learning management system? Did you devise some new creative professional development program? Is there some new curriculum that you've been testing? What is it that you're positioning or intimating? My answer, and what the science shows and what Dr. Allen speaks to, it's quality indoor air that derives that 11-point improvement in math. And in the literature we'll share with you at the end, you can actually, we give the references so you can see the studies itself. Likewise, Dr. Allen also speaks about, and actually I want to actually read just short commentary from one of the things he's represented. Students in classrooms that receive portable mechanical ventilation system interventions, and then obviously, as you heard Tracy speak to and you heard Roger speak to, you want to deploy monitors so that you can, if I borrow an old saying, trust but verify, right? Empirically prove the preventative actions you've taken are actually working. Dr. Allen goes on to say, perform faster and more accurately in computerized tasks. And in one of his representations, he shows a 15% improvement, for instance, in word recognition by students. So the science is out there. There's lots that we can share with you. Obviously, we don't have but 45 minutes with the audience today. And again, we're going to give you these resources at the end. But again, we want to make sure you understand the connection between quality indoor air and the necessity for monitoring equates into student performance. The last reference that I want to give all of you that are listening, and again, it's going to be in your packet, I would implore you to check out research that was done by Dr. Jun Ping and Dr. Jose Jimenez of the University of Colorado at Boulder. They have a very compelling study and paper out there that you can read that talks about why CO2 monitoring is important. And I just want to read 2 sentences from their position paper. So forgive me, I have it right on my screen as I look at the camera here, but I don't want to misquote. I want to go right to the sources and just read you 2 sentences, and then I'll move on. Sentence number 1. Carbon dioxide, CO2, is co-exhaled with aerosols containing SARS-CoV-2 by COVID-19 infected people and can be used as a proxy of SARS-CoV-2 concentrations indoors. So in the very first sentence, they're relating this correlation as we people occupy a room like a classroom and we exhale anyone who's infected, that is put into the context of the classroom. Second sentence I want to read from the 2 research scientists at the University of Colorado Boulder. The relative infection risk in a given environment scales with excess CO2 levels, and thus keeping CO2 levels as low as feasible in a space allows for optimization of the protection provided by ventilation. So again, I'll point you to the resources at the end. We can't go too deep in a webinar, but definitely wanted to communicate there's this correlation. Take actions not only for today, but for the future about monitoring indoor air, and you can expect to see improved outcomes in student test scores, attendance, behavior, and as Roger so eloquently pointed out, perhaps even increase ADA and economic benefit to your school or school district. And so with that, what I like to do is actually transition to our partner and the co-sponsors of our webinar today. With us, we have Mary Furto. Mary is the CMO of Honeywell. And Mary, what I'd like to ask you to do is this issue of monitoring of CO2, you all have obviously had some experience already overseas. Can you bring us some information about what Honeywell has seen internationally, where schools have been doing this? And then without going per se about a product or solution itself, tell us what should a school or school district be looking at if they're to think about considering a solution like this, quote, CO2 monitoring.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure being here today to talk about this important topic. Now, for more than 50 years, we've developed gas detection solutions to protect workers in challenging conditions like chemical plants and refineries. But in 2021, several European countries made CO2 monitoring mandatory for indoor spaces like schools, hotels, restaurants, fitness centers, in response to the studies that correlated low CO2 concentration with low concentration of airborne virus particles, as you heard earlier from a few of the speakers. So we leveraged our industrial gas detection expertise to fast-track development of an easy-to-use solution. And we use a proprietary technology that monitors CO2, temperature, and humidity in combination with activity levels to determine the potential risk. And this created a compact, simple to install monitor for schools that alerts users when conditions are present that may increase the risk of potential exposure to airborne viral transmission. So as of today, thousands of units have been purchased by public school systems in Europe, primarily in France, the UK, and Belgium. And in addition to the COVID-related risks, as you heard from Tracy and Mac, avoiding elevated CO2 concentration in educational environments can also have the positive impact in learning and retention, and these solutions alert to those levels as well. Retrofitting school buildings and facilities to install integrated CO2 systems can be costly and disruptive, so using a wireless solution that's simple to deploy, our solution has both a local display as well as a multi-level dashboard to give views for both schools and the district, and the ability to communicate directly with the building management system to take action on increasing ventilation or airflow. So with our system, you can see a system view of the current risk at any time, or utilize analytical functions to see trends over time. So you can see what's happening in different classrooms or different districts. As you customize the best solution for your school, look for offerings that are simple, easy to install, easy to maintain, and allow you access to historical as well as real-time data so you don't lose that information. Regardless of the offering that you choose, air quality monitoring is critical to effective learning environments and reducing the health risks in academic facilities. As a parent myself, I recognize the importance of this issue, and we all have an opportunity to make schools better and safer for our children.
Awesome, Mary. I too can appreciate that my daughter might be a little bit older than yours, but she actually is a teacher teaching English in a European country. I won't say where, but in fact, she's required to have a CO2 monitor on her desk in that classroom at all times. And she's been teaching in Europe for a number of years now. So, but to your point, maybe there's something we can pick up and learn from our friends across the pond. But appreciate that. Mary, if people wanted to find more information, where might they go?
You can go to honeywell.com/air monitoring. So all one word. And I believe we'll show it again at the end, but honeywell.com/air monitoring to learn more about overall air quality, as well as find out how you can purchase our product.
Very cool. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mary. Okay, what I want to do now is another transition. Again, at the top, I told you that in some states, this issue has become to the fore, where the legislature and the governors have actually taken steps to put this into law, that CO2 monitoring will take place in classrooms under certain circumstances. So if you're not familiar, in the state of California, it's California AB 841, was passed and signed into law in June of 2020. I'll say that again, June of 2020, so almost 2 years ago, and spoke about the conditions of when the will of the people of the state of California ask, or in fact mandate, that our schools employ CO2 monitoring. What California did on top of that was they actually built a funding mechanism to help schools secure that solution. Fast forward the clock, right next door, the state of Nevada passed a similar law. It's Nevada AB 257, if you care to look. And in terms of the technical language and the scenarios and the conditions where schools in the great state of Nevada are compelled to employ a CO2 monitor, the laws are nearly identical to California. The one difference, major difference, is in Nevada, they did not come up with a funding mechanism for the school districts. Although I want to reemphasize, ESSER funds are available nationwide, but California found a way to do it unique for districts in this state, whereas Nevada did not. To bring us information about that program in California, and we invite in because sometimes things tend to move from California and move east. Doing research right before the call, I did note that a bill like this has already been filed in the state of New Jersey. So to my East Coast friends, maybe be ready. We're going to give you a little bit of insight as to what the program is, why the will of the people of California expressed in the way it was. And so I want to turn the baton over to David Velasquez, who is the manager of the CalShape program in the state of California. David?
Thanks for that introduction, Matt. Good morning and afternoon for wherever you are. My name is Dave Velasquez, and I'm the supervisor in the School Stimulus Office at the California Energy Commission. I'm here today to speak to you briefly about a grant program that the CEC is administering called the California Schools Healthy Air, Plumbing, and Efficiency Program, or CalShape for short. Just a friendly reminder that the California Energy Commission does not endorse or partner with any contractors, vendors, or manufacturers. This program was implemented with the passage of Assembly Bill 841. CalShape consists of two programs, the CalShape Ventilation Program and the CalShape Plumbing Program. Program guidelines have been adopted by the Energy Commission, and we're currently accepting applications and issuing awards for approved applications for both the ventilation and plumbing programs. The CalShape Ventilation Program offers grants to schools and charter schools to assess, maintain, and repair HVAC systems in these schools. The CalShape Plumbing Program provides grants to replace aging and inefficient plumbing fixtures and appliances in school districts and charter schools as well. Funding round one for the CalShape Ventilation and Plumbing programs have ended, so we're not accepting applications at this time. We anticipate a second funding round to open around the end of Q1 2022. Notices will be posted on the CalShape program webpage prior to the start of the second funding round with information on the application start and end dates and amount of available funding. CEC staff will also be hosting a workshop to discuss this CalShape program and solicit feedback on potential changes on February 15th, 2022 from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time via Zoom. We estimate for the entire program that over $600 million will be allocated for both ventilation and plumbing upgrades. We also wanted to highlight that these programs prioritize schools in underserved communities. Only schools that meet the program's underserved community requirements are eligible to apply for the program in our initial phase. The program uses application tiers to distribute grant funding, and school districts are awarded funding from one of the 3 application tiers. The tiers are based on LEA student enrollment, so school districts of all sizes have been allocated funds to participate in the program. The project requirements for each program are provided in the program guidelines. Both programs require the use of a licensed contractor to prepare a contractor estimate and skilled and trained workforce to prepare the work. The ventilation program also requires the use of qualified testing or adjusting personnel for the assessment of the HVAC systems. Although each program has specific requirements, the applications are very similar and were developed to be streamlined and easy to complete by the school district. Applications are completed and submitted electronically using the CalShape online system. A school district staff member will need to register an account in the online system to start an application. We're here today as part of our efforts to get the word out that these programs are available and that all school districts in California should go to our program website to learn more about the programs and apply. The CalShape website can be found by going to the CEC's main webpage at www.energy.ca.gov and using the search tool. Entering CalShape will direct you to our program webpage. There, you can find relevant information, eligibility requirements, our program guidelines, and a link to the CalShape online system. CalShape program staff are available to answer any questions on the program. Our contact information is available on the program webpage, where anyone interested in receiving more information about our program can send us an email directly. The program email address is calshape@energy.ca.gov. One of our program staff will be happy to assist anyone interested in learning more about the program, eligibility, and relevant information to help with preparing an application. We're very excited to be implementing the CalShape ventilation and plumbing programs and look forward to hearing from anyone who would like additional information about the programs. Thank you for your time. Back to you, Mike.
Wow. So David's obviously learned from my prior Q&A with our panelists. He already answered the next question I was going to ask. Where could they go get more? Thank you, David. Appreciate it. For those that aren't in the state of California, you might be asking, well, that was very myopic. Yes, guilty as charged. But again, we wanted you to get a sense of, remember our mission today, awareness of this issue, how it's being measured, how it's being attended to across our nation, across our land. And we already have the data points. California is not alone. And I don't think it's just going to stop with California, but we'll move to many states, I believe, across the country. So to the extent you're curious about what that law reads like, what language and what the legislature, obviously working with subject matter experts, found as language that could move through the political process and have governor sign it, what it defines those scenarios for when it might come to your school, or if you're looking for information to help your school board or your school cabinet understand these scenarios where it's compelling, at least in the state of the case of 2 states, take a look again at California AB 841 or Nevada AB 257. And then obviously check out the resources that David just spoke to. Okay, well, I want to say thank you for all of our panelists. I hope you walk away with, again, the connection point I talked about at the top. We wanted to bring awareness to you. We wanted you to get a connection between these actions and why monitoring is so important, and then how it impacts student performance. And we want to give you a sense of, from a case study, hearing from a colleague, a peer, just how impactful it's been in his particular district. And then just looking at the state of California as a case study, making sure you know if you want to take action, 1, there's lots of us that are here to help. 2, there are resources, whether it be at the federal level or the state level, that can equip you in your district and your school site to go forward. In my next transition, what I want to do is I want to make sure everybody knows, and I want to say publicly a thank you to our partners at Honeywell. What we're going to do is use a random generator, but as you all logged on, our partners at DA have used the tool to randomly select. So long as it's a member of a school or school district, Honeywell has agreed, and we're going to move forward and actually choose somebody to be the recipient of a no-cost trial of CO2 monitoring and solutions at your particular school. We'll get into the logistics and all of that after our webinar. And so in just a moment, I'll ask Steve to help me announce who that individual is. But what I want to do right now, since I know I'm talking to a bunch of folks in the education community, I want to do a little quiz. Okay, forgive me. But I'm going to ask Steve. Steve, can you go ahead and put up just 3 poll questions? And they're all yes or no. So it should be rather easy for all of us to just put forth an answer. I'm just curious to see, since now that we've concluded the formal part, just take a second to answer the questions if you would, and we'll take a look at the results here in just a second, and then we'll come back and talk about who is that winner, and then we'll get to your questions. So Steve, if I can ask you to go ahead and put the poll questions up.
Yep, just a few more seconds. And here they are.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So let's just take a quick look here. Great. Looks like the preponderance of folks had some awareness of the connection for the 25% or so, 22%. Hopefully, we've given just enough for you to want to take a step and do some additional research. Hopefully, giving you enough that compels you to actually investigate this and see if it's the right kind of solution for your school or school district. Looks like it's about 50-50 and have you taken any action? So again, for that population, hopefully you're so inclined to, again, take another step, talk to leaders within your school or school district and see if this kind of solution makes sense. And here in the state of California, looks like most have not yet filed an application. Obviously, there's certain deadlines and dates that Dave spoke to that you got to be aware of. But again, for those of you who are in the state of California, do remember, check out the CalShape website. David was really thorough in describing the program, the necessity, the needs, how it goes about availing funds. I heard him speak to a very easy application website and just a simple process to register. So I encourage you to check that out. And for all of our participants, thank you for participating in the poll. David, could I ask you to let us know who winning district or school might be before we transition to Q&A?
Yes. So
Stephen.
I used the random number generator. Again, this is Stephen over at DA. And we do have a winner. Congratulations to Scott Fillmore, Master Mechanic over at Everett Public Schools in Washington State. So Everett Public Schools, they will be receiving a 3-month school trial of Honeywell's transmission risk air monitoring solution and will receive up to 10 devices for use during that time. So let me hand things off to you, Mary.
We'll be following up with you directly and look forward to working with you and seeing what these air quality levels are in your school and figuring out other solutions that potentially could help you. But we will get that free trial over to you shortly.
Super. Thank you. And thank you, Mary, and thank you to our partners, Honeywell. Okay, with the time we have left, what I'd like to do, Stephen, is let's look at some of the Q&A and let's see if we can answer some of our audience questions. I see 3 or 4 questions here from David. Let's see. Range is much more.
Do you want me? I can answer a little bit about the sensors, Matt.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mary.
So you are going to see quite a bit of variation in quality across manufacturers. I'm not aware if an independent study was done yet. That's definitely something that we could work with a third party to set up. What I would recommend, though, we typically see variation around 40 to 50 ppm in our devices. That's within the California guidance, is the that 50. I would recommend looking at suppliers who do a lot of gas detection, who are experts in that space. They're going to have a lot higher quality tolerance because of the safety nature of the devices that they use versus someone who may be typically looking at temperature or humidity and CO2 as the secondary. So there are lots of people who kind of have gas as their primary. That's what I would recommend looking at for the CO2 monitoring.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Just pulling down, looking, I got an earlier question that, well, no, there's more questions coming in. One, Roger is aimed at Roger. So Roger, I see a question from Daniel. If you got a moment, you want to take that one.
Can you
Oh,
read
sorry.
the-
Sure. What was the response from faculty as well as family and parents? I guess when you introduced the concept of indoor air quality monitoring in the district, and how has the response changed since the pandemic began?
It was pretty well received at the beginning. Early on, I didn't have any pushback. It became part of our COVID mitigation strategy, especially with the teachers union. That was very critical in making sure that we kept people safe. So it was part of our messaging to the community, parents, teachers, and the teachers union that CO2 monitoring, ventilation, and filtration was part of our mitigation strategy. And it was well received, and I didn't get any pushback. And actually, a lot of people really commended our efforts. We did all of the work actually prior to AB 841. We were doing ventilation work back in 2019 before COVID. So we really had a head start before the program even was started.
Thank you, Roger. I was just holding on here. I think I see another question coming in. Sorry, is that in the chat or a question I see coming in, Steve? You see something from Brenda? Trying to actually.
So Matt, Brenda put a question into the chat to me, saying that I said that there were 3 things to focus on when looking at air quality. And actually what I said, that there are 3 things that we're specifically focused on right now when it comes to the immediate response to COVID. There are a number of things to be looking at altogether for comprehensive indoor air quality, which you can certainly find more information on our site. But the 3 things that we're really drilling down on when it comes to immediate COVID response is, like you said, increasing your outdoor ventilation, enhancing your filtration up to a MERV 13 or better if you're or as high as your system will allow. And that 3rd thing, Brenda, was around supplemental air cleaning and air purification, and figuring out, whether or not you need supplemental air purification once you've done the assessment of your ventilation and filtration. If you're still not meeting the air changes that you want to have, or your CO2 monitoring is indicating that you're not getting the ventilation and cleaning rates you want, thinking about identifying additional in-space portable air cleaning and purification. So those are the three biggies right now, and those are embedded in a larger system of comprehensive management that you'll want to be putting in place for long-term results.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, as I look down the Q&A bar, I don't see any additional questions. I'll give just 5 seconds here, or 10 seconds. Anyone still, and appreciate, looks like we maintained our audience pretty well throughout the 45, 50 minutes we've been together. Anybody else care to pose a question with any of our panelists? Okay, I see. Oh, so Roger's obviously put his contact information up in the chat in case anybody wants to follow through mano a mano. Appreciate that. If I don't see any others, then Steve, what I may ask partners over at DA, let's go ahead and wrap up. Let's finish off how folks can gain access to this webinar at the conclusion, gain access to some of the resources that we've talked about here. And then if it means we give everyone back a minute or two in their day, I always like a little bit finishing a little early if we can give back some time to folks. Oh,
Some questions are coming in.
yep, I see it now. No worries. That's why. All right. Let's see. Janine. What I will do, Janine, if you're a registered guest or registered participant, obviously you're on the call, allow me this. I don't have, like, I know the California law and I know the VADA law by heart. Let me just send you an email that discloses what that New Jersey bill is. I don't have it off the top of my head what the New Jersey House bill, I think it was a House bill that was passed in your great state, but I can easily get it for you and I'll share it with you. Okay. Stephen, do you see any others coming in?
That looks like it's it. But that said, when I'm going through my closing remarks and you do end up sending a question, I'll make sure to pass that on to our sponsors at Honeywell and School Specialty, and they will get to you after this event. So again, if you have any questions during this time, make sure you can still submit them into the Q&A, and I will send them to the appropriate people.
Great, thank you. I'm done, Stephen. I just want to say thank you for our audience. Thank you to our participants. I'll let you wrap it up. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mac, and to all of our panelists for taking the time and providing your insights on such a very important topic. And as I start going through these closing remarks right now, you'll notice that I'm going to be going through a few slides. They consist of a list of resources from our sponsors at Honeywell and School Specialty. Don't worry about taking any screenshots. We at DA, we will be sending you this information via PDF at some point tomorrow. But these are the resources that you will be receiving via email as well. And with that said, I would also like to thank our attendees for joining us today as well. For those of you who enjoyed our presentation today, there are many more upcoming web seminars like this one that are provided by District Administration, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, in addition to trends and current issues in K through 12. Our wide range of readers, they subscribe to free to DA, and they stay up to date with us through our print magazine, our newsletters, and web seminars like this one. Also, for those of you who would like to watch this web seminar again, or for those of you who believe that the solutions that we provided would be helpful to your colleagues, you'll be pleased to know that at DA, our team, we will be sending you an email at some point tomorrow with an on-demand recording of this webinar, the link to the slides, as well as the resources that I just mentioned. So look out for that. And with that, on behalf of DA, this is Stephen Blackburn. Thanks, everyone. Take care, be well, and stay safe. Thank you very much.